He has the ability to create cartoon characters that move with the grace and agility of fine dancers and to project the great emotional depth of our finest actors.
Ladies and gentlemen, remember this. Great cartoon voices without great animation would simply be radio. Please welcome Richard Williams.
Wow. Thank you very much, members of the Academy and Carl Bell. I have to thank first Steven Spielberg for having the enormous prestige to midwife the whole...
Richard Williams just won an honorary Oscar for his animation work on Who Framed Roger Rabbit, something considered by most to be his greatest achievement.
Thanks. The best is yet to come.
Or at least, that's what it seems to be. Unbeknownst to many, Williams had another project that he claimed to be a masterpiece in the making.
It's called The Thief and the Cobbler, or it's called The Cobbler and the Thief this year. We change the title every year. The idea is to make the best animated film that's ever been made. And there really isn't any reason why not.
So, who was this guy? Why should we care? Well, he won an Academy Award, make that two, and he was in charge of animation for a few fairly memorable pieces. And he funneled millions from his personal income for his own production he would work on for over 25 years. It all started in 1964 with Nasrudin, a film Williams had been priming himself for based on Mullah Nasrudin of Eastern folklore fame. It was decided early on to focus on Persian and Indian designs, something that would stay with the film right up into its final work print.
The bulls are gone! My kingdom will come to destruction and death!
Williams managed to grow his production team and began hiring voice actors, starting with Vincent Price as the voice of the villain.
O greatest king of all the earth, this lowborn cobbler of no worth attacked me in the square today. Shall we take his head away?
Though he would eventually complete his role, Price would not live to see the release of the film. Around the time of distribution negotiations in 1972, the author of the stories Williams had been adapting demanded large portions of the profits. The film was abandoned. A new script was to be made from scratch. Following several name changes, the production of Nasrudin was now heading in a new direction. The main protagonist had been switched to a silent character, though other characters in the film would speak normally. The dragging production time and epic visions of the finished product took its toll on Williams, as he didn't have the funds to pay his staff.
What do they call it? OPM. The rule is OPM, other people's money. And all these big movie guys, they all use other people's money. And I'm using my own. And they say, well, you're a fool. And, well, nobody gives me. So far, I haven't got OPM. I'm working with DM, Dick's money, if he had any.
Though Williams would try his best to cut down on costs, it was after he saw Disney's The Jungle Book that he had decided to restart production again. He described his realization saying, "It was a nasty shock to realize when you thought you were wonderful and were covered with awards, that you didn't know how to do it at all."
He came to my studio. He says, I haven't met him, right? And he's a big guy. He'd had rickets as a child, and so he had this hunch, and slightly, but he's sort of big. So I didn't know what to do. I ran up to him, and I started shining his shoes. As he comes in, you see? And now he has to pass a whole bunch of these secretaries, attractive secretaries. But he doesn't look at the secretaries. He says, Joe, you don't have to keep doing that. And I said, yes, I do. And he said, he paused, and he said, there's a big painting on the wall, a bunch of men's heads. And he said, who did that? And I said, oh, that's one of my paintings, it's early stuff. And he said, well, you can stop shining because you draw better than me. And I said, oh, no. And he says, then he says, well, On the other hand, keep shining because you can't animate worth shit.
Recruiting several animators from the so-called golden age of animation, production had once again gone back to square one. In 1978, the production caught the attention of a Saudi Arabian prince by the name of Muhammad Faisal, who chose to fund 10 minutes of test footage. Williams decided to focus on the climactic war machine sequence of the film. After 2 missed deadlines and an extra $150,000 to the total cost, the sequence was complete. Though impressed with the footage, the prince backed out of funding for the film. In 1986, Williams met Jake Eberts, who began to fund the film through his own company, Allied Filmmakers. The partnership added $10 million to the budget. After a screening of a sample reel Williams had put together to promote the film, he was contacted by Robert Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg to direct the animation for Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Williams agreed, knowing full well that this film could give him the spotlight that could fund The Thief and the Cobbler.
This Englishman is truly a master. It is with great pride and admiration that I announce the winner of the 1989 Evening Standard Special Award, Mr. Richard Williams.
Richard Williams is simply the best. Born in Canada, he fell in love with animation when he was still in short pants.
In addition to the massive success of Roger Rabbit, there was now proof that Williams could work in a studio environment under time and budget restraints. And at long last, his film had been picked up. Warner Brothers signed a negative pickup deal for the picture in 1988. Full production began, with Williams in charge. The team consisted of many younger animators, many of whom were fired by Williams during the production. Cameraman John Leatherbarrow had this to say: "He fired hundreds of people. There's a list as long as your arm of people fired by Dick. It was a regular event." Around this time is when producer Eberts started encouraging script changes. Funders also began to pressure Williams to finish main scenes to begin a marketing trailer. By Warner Brothers' deadline in 1991, there was still 10 to 15 minutes of footage left to animate, which, at Williams' rate, could take several months. After much deliberation, Williams agreed to assemble a work print to show Warner Brothers.
So it was a lot of things like an accident. One of the financiers ran it at Warner Brothers and left the second last reel out, so they wondered why it didn't make any sense. And actually, the same guy kept turning up with famous rock stars, trying to put rock music into it, and trying to get well-known composers. They weren't known. These people were getting very nervous. And he said, "But your 2 main characters don't speak. You know, we have to have voices." So you're up against conventionality. And I think the best way to say is that, you know the golden rule? Whoever has the gold makes the rules. And it's funny, but it's not funny. And I will never go near one of those again.
The film and all of its assets were sold to the Completion Bond Company, axing Williams as director and ousting him from production. Now in the hands of the Completion Bond Company, the film was finished as cheaply and quickly as possible. Any unfinished animation was either cut entirely or reworked. The story was heavily revised, giving many of the silent characters voices.
Nobody lives like this except college kids.
You're giving me heart attacks here!
Why can't I ever talk when it matters?
In addition, the new cut added songs in the style of the then recent Disney films and cheaply animated dance numbers. The drop in animation quality was immediately noticeable, stated by several animators and even the new director. Nearly 10 minutes of completed animation was cut to secure a G rating for the film. Many distributors had no desire to fund a theatrical run of the film. Surprise, surprise. Miramax decided to pick up the film for distribution in the United States, but cut the film further from its original 94-minute work print to 72 minutes. The film was a critical and financial failure, grossing only $319,000 of its combined $28 million budget. Williams would refuse to publicly talk about the film for 20 years. Though the film had been mostly forgotten about, several low-quality attempts to restore the film had been made between its release and the early 2000s. Roy E. Disney even attempted a project to restore the film, but after some time, it too was pushed to the side. A semi-restored fan edit of the film was cobbled together in the late 2000s, using footage from work prints that had been passed around by fans and professionals. The edit gained somewhat of a cult following and was said to influence Williams on his recent re-edit of the film, The Thief and the Cobbler: A Moment in Time. Since then, Williams has been looking forward to future projects. He currently hints at a big film that he is working on.
Would you like to know the name of the working title of my film that I've been on for the last 15 years? Yes. It's called Will I Live to Finish This? At the moment.
Here's hoping that it becomes something not to be missed.